Good morning, everybody. This is Diane Kelly with Sandberg Group, and today I'm going to be talking to Mr. Bill Swan of Tucson Business Investments, and he's going to be talking a little bit about what you need to do to prepare your business if you are looking to exit and sell your business at some point in the near future. So Bill is a licensed business broker with Tucson Business Investments, and it's the oldest and largest business brokerage in Southern Arizona. He sold his first business in 1999, so he's got a little bit of experience under his belt. A father of three, grandfather of six, Bill is a retired fighter pilot. After 25 years with the Air Force and Air National Guard, Bill and his wife moved to Taos, New Mexico, where they went into business together. A serial entrepreneur with three successful businesses, which is always a good background for a business broker, Bill then started helping others build and then sell their own businesses. They bought a home in Tucson years ago, moved here permanently a few years ago, and Bill just couldn't stay away from helping buyers and sellers reach their dreams. So he joined Tucson Business Investments and continues putting win-win deals together. And as I understand it, you kind of went into this as kind of a part-time thing, and it's morphed into something more than that, right?
It really has. There's, Tucson's a town of small businesses.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, just drive up, Oracle or out Speedway and Broadway. There's just one family small business. Even if they're franchises, they're still mostly owned and run by small businesses. So there's just a lot of activity.
That's great. And it's good for you and it's good for me, since that's also my target market is small business owners. And I feel like in a lot of cases, they're largely neglected because a lot of people, business brokers, people in my space, want to deal with the big guys. They don't want to fool around with the small businesses. But I think that they are very receptive when we talk to them because they understand that we're there to help them. So I think that's really important. Well, since we're talking about preparing your business to sell, you have some key points that we can discuss today. And I think that when somebody's looking to exit their business, there are a lot of moving parts. And they generally don't understand what those moving parts are. And I've had several conversations with business owners, and they think that they can just wake up in the morning and list their business, right? It's like, oh, I can sell my business, right? And what I try to explain to them is I said, okay, if you're going to sell your house, you wake up in the morning and you just go list your house. And they go, well, no. And I said, so you take weeks, maybe even months getting the house ready, right? Painting, cleaning, repairing, all the things that go into that. And I tell them, I said, when you sell your house, you're just selling the structure. When you're selling a business, you're selling the contents, right? So not only do you have to have the structure right, you've got to have everything inside that business running smoothly. And I go into it with them with the processes and the people and then their profits. So all those things are relevant. So talking about profits, one of the first things that you had mentioned was improving their cash flow. Why is that important, and how do they keep their revenue growing when they know that they're ready to leave?
Well, every business is different, but buyers are generally looking at small businesses of moms and pops. They're generally looking for the two things. They're looking for cash flow to the owner and the assets that they're buying. If it's a shuttle company, they'll want to look at all the shuttles, of course, the 14 vehicles they have. But much of the value in a small business is the cash flow that's coming to the owner. So they need to keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. So they need to keep the revenues going. And that means they got to market, they got to promote, and they got to do all those smart things to keep it growing.
So they can't just stop in the middle of the stream and say, I'm selling the business, so I'm not going to do those things. They have to keep that ball rolling, right? And then the second thing that you had down was basically that they have to cut unnecessary expenses. What kind of unnecessary expenses would you be looking at from that standpoint, and what would you advise them to cut?
Well, the first thing I'd look at is their labor, because most of the time, a lot of a mom and pop's expense are all full-time employees. So I would look to take a little bit more responsibility as the owner operator and put in some more hours.
Mhm.
we're going to be able to put your salary back in the owner's salary as a benefit cash flow item. So if you pay yourself more, that's good. But if you pay employees to do work that you could be doing, you're cutting your net profit down. And I can't put that back in and say, oh, that was an unnecessary expense. So just cut down to the bone if you can to keep the business operating, and cut unnecessary or duplicative wage,
Okay.
labor,
Yeah.
employees. That's
Yeah,
one thing.
one of the things that I do when I go in and talk to a business owner, though, is I'm trying to get that business out of the day-to-day running of that company. So there's a crossover there. And what I try to
There
tell
is.
them is, you do need to cut down on labor expenses where it's unnecessary, but I don't want that business owner necessarily doing things that they shouldn't be doing, because then if somebody comes in to buy it, they're going to say, this one is way too much work for me, and I don't want to run it like that. So what's that crossover line?
That's really hard to do. I never want a business owner to do the minimum wage jobs. I don't want them to do that.
Yeah.
I want them to focus on the things that they're doing. And I love that you teach that. And I love that you get your folks to be working on their business rather than in it. I'm just suggesting that they need to look at their labor, because if they can cut that down, they're going to raise net profit. That's what we need to look at, raise net profit. Should I redo the bathroom in my business? You got to make it look nice. It's got to be in accordance with all the regulations, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money right there. The key here, Diane, is they need to come to us and you early. The early they come to us to give us time to help them through that process. Now that, as you know, that normally doesn't happen.
Right.
They come to us late. They come to us, oh, I got to sell tomorrow.
Right.
We'd like them to come to us when their business is still growing, when their business is still very profitable, and the numbers going up versus going down.
Right.
The
Yeah.
timing
Really
is important.
Yeah, very important there. One of the things that we do when we go in and look at their processes and their people to help move their profits ahead is exactly what you're talking about. In the processes realm, we look at what they're paying for outside services, what they're paying for their payroll service, what they're paying for their insurances. If there are ways to cut those costs, that's one of the first places that we bring in the hatchet and start cutting back, so that we can improve that cash flow right out of the gate and get it moving a little bit more smoothly, which they should be doing anyway on a regular basis. But again, it's a small business. They're working in the business, not on it. So that's one of the first areas that we come in and actually try to help them, is to cut down on current expenses wherever possible and feasible. So that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's talk about people. We talked about processes a little bit. Let's talk about people. You said value key employees. So with the business owner trying to move out of that day-to-day stuff, they obviously, hopefully, have key employees that they want to keep engaged. One of my potential clients that I'm working with now asked me, how do I keep my key employees while I go through this process? And I said, well, that's a really interesting question. And of course, they're always on that ledge of, I don't want to tell them I'm selling the business, because then they'll all leave, right? But by the same token, I need to get prepared, so I need to make sure everybody's doing what they need to do and all that. We come in and help them with their job descriptions, which generally they don't have, and then find out where the holes are, or like you said, where the overages are, where there's too much duplication of duties, or people just don't even know what they're supposed to be doing, which we find. So we help them get all their HR information and job descriptions, employee handbooks, policies and procedures all in place, which I think is really important to a potential buyer too.
Well, yeah, I agree. Everything you said. I mean, you do a lot of really valuable, probably unpaid, actually, coaching for these folks, getting them ready and getting them understanding how their business works. The business owner that comes to us, I just had it yesterday, actually. a buyer, very interested, very qualified buyer, wants to buy a business, and he asked me, are there any, and he wants to buy it for his young son. So he wants to buy it for a 25-year-old kid. And so he asked me that question, does the owner have a 40-year-old adult supervision in there, somebody with restaurant management experience that, so my son won't be just taking over the owner's position and not have something else. And the owner didn't have that. The owner has a couple of key employees, but they're young and they're sharp and they're good, but they're not, restaurant management experienced folks. Yeah. So that I don't think this person's going to buy the business because I need a key employee in there once the owner leaves. Yeah. So that's always important to identify that continuity of, hey, when I leave, who's going to help keep this business a success and get it going on the right way? Sometimes the owner has to stay on.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. It's kind of a leverage buyout, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Wow. Well, that's really important. And true to point, a lot of these small businesses don't have that middle management level, right? They don't have the C-suite. They just have the worker bees and owners, maybe some managers or foremen or something along the way, but nobody who's really capable of the management aspect. So that's really important. Another thing that you put down is that they need to check into their rental agreement, their landlord lease, and find out if it's assignable. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important and what they should look for?
Right. Yeah, thank you. We probably look at one or two leases a week. Each of us do with potential sellers, and they're pretty standard, most leases. But the buyer, the buyer is immediately concerned about what kind of lease is there, and can I get it, or do I have to do a new lease if it's coming out and ending soon? Every lease has a paragraph or two that talks to the assignability of this lease. They're almost all assignable to the buyer, almost all of them, but you have to have that conversation with the landlord and their property manager to find out, what do you need to know about the buyer? The buyer has to be qualified. Right. The landlord can end the deal. The landlord could say, no, that guy, that buyer is not qualified. I won't assign this lease to them. The second problem, of course, is to ask the tough question of, hey, if I have a buyer take over my lease, do I get off the lease?
And
most landlords won't let them off the lease, at least until the next option or until there's a new lease. And, sellers hang sound to that because they're still on the hook. If the buyer fails and defaults and doesn't pay his rent, guess what? Landlord's going to come back to the original person.
Wow.
Sometimes they'll let them off in the lease assignment, because that's what we do. We assign the lease from the current tenant to the buyer of the business. So it's really an important discussion that you've got to have with your landlord.
And that's something that the person who wants to sell their business should be looking at in advance, again, not waiting till the last minute, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good information. Good information. Yeah. So other things that you talked about is presenting well. When a business is trying to look to sell, what is the dressing that makes it present well? What do you look for that that the buyers will be looking for?
Well, buyers don't want to walk into a business, retail, restaurant, service business that has an office, that has space. They don't want to walk in and go, oh, I've got to spend a whole bunch of money here, bringing it up to my standards. It's dirty. The floors need being redone. The kitchen won't really pass a new health inspection because the health department will come in and inspect once the new owner's in there. So we try to be brutally honest. We want walk around and say, look, you need to make this place look a little bit better. Don't want you to spend a ton of money, but we need to make sure that it's presentable. And then you get online, we get online and we search. We do, TripAdvisors and Yelp and all those things, searching for the business to look at their reputation online. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's, it's not very good. And sometimes it's excellent. That's what we hope it will be. And I'm sure you've run into this, but so we recommend that they hire reputation managers for online, because folks can hire somebody that knows how to get the good reviews up and the bad reviews off, and actually talk to the folks who did the bad review and ask them to take it down if they can work something out. So reputation online is becoming more and more and more important.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So I work a lot with the Better Business Bureau of Southern Arizona. I'm an accredited business. Is that a factor? Is that something that goes a long way when you're selling a business? I mean, obviously that's part of the reputation.
It is, and it's nice when we run into a business that's got a good reputation with Better Business Bureau, and also they're members of chambers, members of trade organizations, because a good buyer will research that. Sure. And make sure they're buying a reputable business. So we check into that. Many businesses aren't. Mom and pops, they're so busy. They're just maxed out most of the time, and so they don't always get to those kinds of things. So we say, hey, look, why don't you join the Better Business Bureau and start working with them? Yeah. So we make those kinds of suggestions.
Yeah, that's good. So really, you're talking about their SEO on their website. You're talking about all the social media.
I missed that, Diane.
You're talking about the SEO on their website, their Google searches, and their reviews. They're talking about Yelp. You're talking about I guess the internet's kind of jumping out. Talking about Thumbtack and what's that other one where they sign up for Angie's List? So anything like that where they have ratings would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's something they need to be doing on a daily basis. And again, they're probably not.
You're probably not. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's important. The other thing you had down, which I really like, I work with a lot of accountants, a lot of CPAs, obviously, with their clients and looking to sell their business. And you said unimpeachable books. So talk a little bit about the financial end of it, of what the business owner may or may not be doing that's hurting them or helping them.
Well, this was to me, because when my wife and I went into business, 20-something years ago, we decided we never wanted to look over our shoulder for, the IRS or the local tax people come knocking on the door. The very first day we had employees when we bought a business and we sat them all down, they were shocked that we were going to start paying their Social Security and Medicare because they'd been being paid cash under the table.
Oh, wow.
Now, I knew that because of my due diligence, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it the way it's supposed to be. Well, 3 of them quit on day one because they did not want their income reported to Uncle Sam. Yeah. So more business deals fall apart and fail. I bet you half of the ones I've had fail because the buyer is really interested in what they're looking at. And then we get to the due diligence period and the books are not clean. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, it's that they're not reporting all of their revenue in order to save tax. They're not paying their sales tax as a trustee like they should be. They're not reporting the revenue, so therefore they're not having to pay as much state, local, and federal tax. And so the buyers look at that and go, well, if they're cheating on that, how can I trust all the other things that they've told me about their business?
Yeah.
And good point, you know?
Yeah.
And so they walk. They say, I can't trust sellers. So we have that discussion with them so hard up front. And we turn down businesses routinely that say, oh, well, you know, my tax return shows my revenue at 500, but wink, wink, you know, I really did 650. And we say, well, we're going to sell this business based on your tax return based on the 500. And don't ever tell me about the 650 again, even though it's good for the buyer.
Yeah.
The buyer is getting a business that does more revenue than that's being proven, but it's a matter of trust.
And then they're undervalued because they haven't shown what they're supposed to show.
That's right. That's right. And so they're not paying the taxes that they should be paying. And it's just a matter of trust most of the time. So we tell people, okay, start reporting all your darn income. You don't get it twice. You don't get to save the taxes and then get to sell your business based on this other number that you have. So we really hard on that. We said, you start reporting all cash. Everything's got to go on reports so we can build a picture that is true and accurate, because that's what we care about. We have to be completely transparent. So
yeah, they can't have it both ways.
We have fiduciary.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have fiduciary responsibilities with our license to be absolute, truthful, and open for the buyer, so they get to know what they're getting.
Yeah, so you're on the hook right out of the gate, but they're also short selling themselves in this opportunity to be able to sell the business, because they're going to get a lower value, like you said. They're
That's
not
right.
going to get what they anticipated because some of it is already in their
Right.
pocket. So yeah, that's really critical, I think. So
Yeah.
another type of thing that you're really adamant about is the timing considerations.
Yeah.
You said don't be in a hurry, give us time. What kind of timeline are you talking about? I'm talking about a minimum of 2 years with clients to even get them ready to list. So that's a minimum. So what are you talking about?
Well, primarily, we'd like them to come to us when the business is still growing. They normally don't. But so we say, look, the time to sell is when your revenues are going up, your profits are still improving. If that's not the case, then that's fine. We'll deal with it. And we do most of the time, we deal with it. But it takes a little time. We try to understand this business from A to Z. It may take 2 or 3 months to interface, go visit the business, sit down with the owner, sit down with the CPA and go over the books. So we really try to understand everything that we can about this business. That takes time. And then the seller just, oh, well, how long is it going to take to sell this business? How long does it take to sell your house? I mean, you know, it could be, I could get an offer in days, in hours. That's rare. We could get an offer in 18 months. That's rare. It's somewhere in between, 6 months, 8 months, you know, a year. You got to give us time because we don't want to have a fire sale.
Right.
We want to sell it for the value that it's worth. So
The highest
that's what we
possible
try
value.
to do.
Yeah.
That's
So
right. That's exactly.
if I'm working with a client and I'm working on their processes and their people and their profits and helping them get all this documentation in advance, that makes your job that much easier when they walk in the door because we already have everything all set up.
Absolutely, man. I would love that to happen.
All right. Well, that's why we're talking.
Exactly.
So what do you mean when you say you can't sell a business you don't have? What is that?
I'll try to make this as short as possible. Business owners will say, oh, well, when you put a price on this, when you put a value on my business, remember the new owner can add a patio to the back and pave that in and add all the lighting and everything and have entertainment out the back, and they'll increase all of their nighttime business on this restaurant and have music back there, and it'll be just great. So you got to make sure that they understand they can do that. So the business is really worth more. No, we can't sell a business you don't have. If you think that would really increase the value of your business, you need to add the patio in the back. You need to book the music venue. You need to show how that's increasing your evening revenues in booze and beer and food, and even though you have more labor and more cost of goods, we've got to sell the business that you have. That the buyer is looking at, because they're buying that. They're not buying what it could do.
Yeah.
We always try to sell in sky, this business is growing, or this business, if you added, look, one of the classic things, this, they're not doing a lot of the marketing and social media and the connections like this. They're not doing those kinds of things. And we try to stress that. Look, this guy doesn't even have a website, this seller. So there's some value, there's some potential here that you can immediately up your sales by adding a website. So we do try to sell a little bit of that, but mostly you got to sell what you got going right there.
Yeah. So on that same note, what kind of add-ins would increase the value of a business? I mean, you just talked about basically a restaurant or a food enterprise adding on a patio. What types of things should they do? And maybe more importantly, what types of things should they not do? Like go out and get an SBA loan and buy a new building, right? Because they've been operating out of a small office successfully up to this point, and now they think that the businesses could be valued higher if they have a new building. Where's that line?
Yeah, that's a really hard one, Diane. And I just had a business do exactly that. She came to us and said, hey, I'm thinking about, in essence, adding a whole nother income stream, but take a whole bunch of money to invest. And I told her it's all about the return and how fast you see it. If you're investing in your business and you're not going to see that return for years, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because the buyer is going to go, well, I don't know. It sounds like it might, but I don't want to pay you for something that isn't going to pay you in the sense of additional value on your value of your business for something that may or may not happen. Yeah. So if they can get the return quickly, it's that cash flow.
ROI.
How can you increase cash flow? So that's revenue minus expenses and cost of goods. What's that number down there? Can I get that to grow? If you can do that quickly and by bringing in more, yes, by all means, go for it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good information. Let's see. So you said you need motivated and willing sellers who have reasonable expectations. That almost sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah, it pretty much is. You're right. Yeah. When I was interviewing the different brokerage firms in Tucson to see which one I wanted to join, I asked John Barger at Tucson Business, I said, what do you want more? What do you need more? Willing buyers or willing sellers? Mm-hmm. And you would think he would say buyers. We need buyers. No, we need sellers. We need sellers that are motivated and willing. What that means is we need a seller who will be sensible about the value of their business. The value of the business is based on the marketplace. And we have big databases. We look, how many other of these kinds of shoe stores have sold with this kind of inventory? We have big, giant, millions of businesses being sold. And we look at the values, and then we kind of relate it to, it's more of an art than a science, related to what's going on in Tucson. But we need them to, A, be willing to be transparent, to show everybody everything about their business. We would like them to consider seller financing.
Mm.
It shows the buyer that they're confident. If they'll carry back some, put a big down payment down, put half, 3/4 down, but that last 50,000 or that last 100,000 carry back 3 years or 5 years, a short period of time, it shows the buyer that the seller is confident that this business is going to thrive. So
Yeah.
we'd really like that. Now, most every seller says, oh no, I want all my cash up front. Yeah, okay. We all want our cash up front. We understand that. It's natural. But maybe we'll find the perfect buyer and they just don't quite have enough capital.
Yeah.
So we'd like them to be willing and have some reasonable expectations about time and
And
about
value. So we
Yeah.
do soft valuations out of the gate. So when we're working with a client, we run the soft valuation. I tell them this is not a market analysis. This is not going to tell you what you're going to get for your business. It's going to show you basically what you were talking about, the cash flow. So we like to
Right.
start with that with any of our businesses that are going to work with us on the exit planning, because again, a lot of times you ask the business owner, how much is your business worth? And they either pull something out of the blue sky that has no basis in reality, right? Or they're the deer in the
Right.
headlights and go, I have no clue. So
Right.
either way, we feel that that's a real good starting point for them to at least find out, where are we? We get a baseline, and that gives us something to work forward to.
I find the most interesting question when I'm interviewing a seller for the first time is, what do you think your business is worth?
Yeah. Yeah.
And why?
Yeah.
They don't know why, but they'll go, oh, my business is worth, $400,000.
Yeah.
And it gives me a good sense. And then I drill down on that and we start trying to get our expectations in line.
Pipe dreams.
Yeah.
Especially when we have a family run business, like the husband and wife are running the business, I actually have a questionnaire I give each of them to answer separately with questions like that.
That's a
How
great
much do you
idea.
think your business is valued? What would make you sleep at night knowing that you had this amount in the bank? And the answers are really diverse sometimes. They're like totally different. And it helps them, number one, get on the same page, but also, like you said, gives us a starting point of where we're going.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's fun.
We ought to do that. We'd probably learn more about them more quickly than just in the interview. That's a great idea.
Right. Exactly. So you talked about reasonable expectations, transparency, consider selling financing. All those things are really key components. You also talked a little bit about possibly the business owner having to stay in the business for a time period to make that transition smoother. So how long would the business owner normally have to stay in the business after the sale?
Well, there's kind of a normal standard that we do of 2 weeks, 10 working days, full time to be in the business. Many buyers don't need that much time because they're buying a business that they have some experience in. Every once in a while, a buyer will ask if they can stay on longer, maybe mentorship for 6 months or a year by phone, or even hire them as a contractor and stay on as an independent contractor to help with the business. That happens occasionally also.
Well, that makes sense because there's a transition time and you want to
There
make
is.
sure that the transition goes smoothly. So that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so the business owner who thinks that he's going to sell the business and just walk away probably is not dealing with reality. So good for them to know
No.
that.
Yeah, that's true. There's often, key employees that will stay on and help out, and sellers always want to get on with their lives, but they also want to make sure that the business thrives and gets started. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So how has the current situation affected your business? Are you still getting business buyers and sellers, and what's the mix on that, Bill?
It's actually shocking. I've listed a couple of businesses, but we've been in the last couple of weeks, but we've been working with them for months. But we've got them up and running. I've got 3 or 4 that want me to start talking to them and working with them and get them listed. A couple have reached out just in the last week or 10 days, but it's the buyers. I'm just really surprised. They're sitting at home, getting on the internet, looking at stuff, but they're serious buyers, it appears, most of them. And so we're getting lots of activities. I actually have a purchase agreement that I've written, a couple of letters of intent. I got a verbal offer yesterday on one of my listings. So it's happening. And these appear to be qualified buyers, which is great. So the activity is a surprise.
Excellent.
Yeah, but the buyers are, they're cautious. And we're going to have to get landlords involved to help out with new leases, to help out with some rent up front, because how can a buyer buy a business and they can't be open? A restaurant. So we're asking landlords, hey, can you help out if by the closing date these folks can't even open their doors? So and we're finding most landlords helping with that. How about you? What are you finding?
Well, since we work business to business and primarily with smaller businesses, the business owners are a little cautious and not willing to really commit a lot of financial things right now. But it is a perfect time for them to start gathering documents, just like we talked about, and start getting things in order. So if I can get them to start doing that, and at least cleaning stuff out, making sure they have current documents, current lease documents, all that, and get that compiled, we'll be 10 steps ahead when we come out of this, when they're able to secure my services, and we can start actually doing the planning. So thank you. Yeah. So thank you, Bill, for being here.
You're welcome. I loved it. It was great. And thanks for everything that you do. I know the more you're doing, the easier my job's going to be. So Diane, that's great.
Exactly right. Yeah, we want to make it easy. And there are other exit planners out there I found who are charging exorbitant fees for their planning service, and they literally hand the client a book and say, here's your exit plan. And then nobody's there to help them really execute it. So we're really hands-on, and we really like to get in there and help the business owner make sure things get done, because and I know if somebody's not there steering the ship, it doesn't happen.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Well, have a good one, man.
Appreciate your time. All right, good luck with businesses, and if we find any of our clients are ready to start selling, we'll get them over there for you.
Yeah, and as soon as we can do some, some meetings and working with a group of people again, I'd love to do that with you. So great.
Awesome. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thanks.